This week on The Futurists, Dina Baenninger.
We cannot not address ethics among humans because AI is a child of us humans. It will do what we train it to. We cannot expect of AI to be ethical if the people who it learns from do not think about their own ethics.
Welcome back to The Futurists. I am your host, Brett King, and it's my turn this week to say Rob is on the road. Actually, he's in Los Angeles right now. I hope a shout out to my friends there that have already been evacuated because of the fires there. I know this is going to air probably later, and we'll see the outcome of that. But it's a concerning sort of development that's happening out there. But Rob is not going to be able to join us today. So I'm running solo. We have a really interesting guest. I met up with Dina in Dubai recently around the Dubai Future Foundation, or the Dubai Future Forum rather. And we had an evening together sort of brainstorming with a bunch of futurists. And it was a really fun evening. And we thought we'd try and continue the conversation a bit here today and talk about, some regenerative futures and being future ready and things like that. So Dina, welcome to The Futurists.
For having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity on the show.
Yeah, it's great to continue the conversation. So you run a strategic consultancy, Future Fit Innovation, Charisma, out of Zurich and Umgebung.
Umgebung.
I don't know where
that means
Zurich, in Zurich. Okay.
Charisma Nova.
Okay. Charisma Nova. And you're also Executive Director of Strategic Partnership and Alliances at Aloha's, the Regenerative Foundation. And I know you've been doing some good work with Mark Buckley, who we've had on the show before, and others. So it's great to have you in the house. First of all, in terms of the way you sort of express yourself as a futurist and the sort of work you do, when you're talking about future fit, what does that mean to you in terms of, where you position yourself as an advisor or with organizations?
So I need to start a little bit further back in my past, and that is that I've been trained as an artist. I went to high school of design and then at university studied classical painting and then transitioned to multimedia producing. And as an artist, what you do, actually, you're not told that you do that, but you look into the invisible, unmanifested worlds and try to bring them down in reality. So I would say that later on, my career developed in brand and business consulting, marketing, event management, large-scale events in Switzerland and globally. And then I discovered that actually what I do fits the most to what people nowadays call futurists, but I call myself also kind of a bridge builder or even translator between the unmanifested possible futures to the manifested reality. And I travel very gladly between the worlds and bring along others, companies, organizations, and hopefully even larger scale communities, hopefully the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see ourselves a bit as problem solvers for the world as futurists. We've taken that on, trying to fix, or at least get humanity to the best future possible, right? It's these possible futures you talk about. In terms of, moving from an artist into someone looking at forecasting and ensuring future fit and communicating those multiple timelines you talked about effectively. How did you make that transition? How did you go from being more on the creative side? How did that align with those goals of helping organizations being future fit?
Oh, that's also something that happened rather back in my past when I was studying art. And with about 13 years old, I started also, I went on a quest of self-discovery and self-development, dived into Eastern philosophy, spirituality, but also Western, just everything. And that went hand in hand with my activity as an artist, because as an artist, what you ultimately try to do is to find expression of who you are in some form of, let's say, my path was visual arts, fine arts. But in order to express who you are, you first have to find out who you are. So that was kind of my process of self-discovery on both sides. And then throughout my studies, right in the middle of my university education, although I was one of the best in class, I felt I need to quit. This does not work for me anymore. And I had a very great professor who was one of the leading conceptual artists of the generation of Marina Abramovic and similar minds. Said, no, wait a minute. You are not quitting. Just go. I release you from all tasks, and you just go in every day in the studio and try to figure out what's bugging you. And what I realized is actually that it was not that I do not want to do art. It was the medium that did not work for me. It was two-dimensional. And life as I perceived it was multidimensional. And I pursued then other forms of art like installation, performance, and conceptual art, where I figured out it's all about actually life is art, can be art. And what is art all about? It's about the process of creation or bringing down ideas into the matter or into the materials world. And then when I ventured on to working with companies or as a brand and business strategist, and I was trained by Martin Neumeyer, who's kind of the godfather of branding, who worked with Steve Jobs when he went back to Apple and built it to the brand that Apple is today. So he's my personal mentor as well. So for me, there is no difference between business and art. It's kind of a new kind of a material of doing art because it's very compatible actually. Because business innovation requires different kind of thinking beyond the boundaries. I mean, this term is used often a lot, thinking out of the box, but I go far beyond that. I know you speak about first principle thinking, but that's also not enough. I find I use a combination of first principles thinking with art thinking, which deals with asking the right questions. And then design thinking, which goes for finding the right pathways to manifest that different optimized reality. And it's about improving the state of life, quality of life.
Interesting. I mean, this is definitely a more philosophical conversation than we probably have on this show. We occasionally do delve into these aspects, but when you think about the world that's coming and the challenges that are there, and adaptability, that future fit terminology you used, and you're thinking about it in terms of this art discipline and the ability to sort of mold that. You are talking a bit more of a philosophical approach to problem solving here that is a bit more creatively led. It's a bit more consensus building and things like that. But what's your sort of core philosophy in terms of how humans should be adapting to the future?
You're on one hand, yes, it is philosophical, but my philosophy is very practical, is applied philosophy, not philosophy for the sake of philosophy, but philosophy for the sake of changing the perspective and taking as many perspectives as possible simultaneously in order to be able to get an insight about certain issue. And really also in regards to now future fit innovation, one of the things is people very fast go to finding solutions without really going, and I speak here not only, businesses, organizations, states, the world. We are trying to solve problems, but we are not spending enough time with checking, is this really the question that we need to ask? Is this really the problem that we need to solve? And there is also a famous quote that people spend a lot of time solving, finding a perfect solution for the wrong problem. And this is where I go back to what I call art thinking, or even first principle thinking. It's kind of a combination of that, but for the sake of finding the best possible practical solution, which can be seen, for example, in businesses. I do consult businesses as a future fit innovation strategist, which means, and also employing foresight and forecasting in the sense I observe mega trends in different ways and see how certain business or certain industry will be affected inevitably because of other factors which are not at the moment directly connected to the business itself, like, for example, development of technology. What would it mean for the tourism sector, let's say? And to see all this interconnectedness of things which have actually a direct impact, which is not apparent at this moment, and to be able to see far in the future and drive it back down to the current reality and find pathways how to go into a direction that will not only prevent that businesses go out of business, but maybe also even occupy not only blue ocean space, but create completely new spaces of doing business. And that's for the sake of improving quality of life. So that's kind of my focus.
It's interesting. I watched this show on Netflix the other day called Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy.
I haven't seen it,
And it
but
was really, yeah, it was really interesting. It was talking about all of this immediacy and convenience factor, you know, and how advertisers worked out. We don't only have to have 2 seasons for clothing. We can have a different season every week. You know, we can have, sports seasons for specific sporting events and things like this. And so they've created all of these, and now you've got Shein, that online clothing store that's coming up with 1 million new products every year. And, the landfill from these poor quality clothing and stuff like that, it's insane. So you've got this problem, and it sort of comes back to, we talked about this with Mark before about the Club of Rome stuff and things like that, is that we are seeing that we have this amazing technical ability to accelerate things like consumption and production of widgets and clothes and electronic devices and so forth. But in doing so, we have this real challenge with creating all of this junk for purely commercial activity. And, there's not meaningful value creation in this. It's just pure consumerism. And I think ultimately this is sort of going to fall apart because you can't have this type of acceleration of this type of massive sort of focus on production of things, and that can't be compatible with sort of the climate crisis future that we're going to, with adjusting to a more sustainable outcome. So we do have to make some pretty interesting decisions. But what about in terms of your approach or your methodology? How do you bring these two worlds together, or these multiple different views together, to build a coherent sort of narrative about the future?
Yeah,
Can you give us an example?
Yes, and actually you pointed out a very important issue, which is consumerism and overconsumption, and actually meaningless efforts. And that, I think, I always try, whatever problem I look at, I always try to go to the core of the problem. And now, for example, overconsumption, what is actually the real need of people, both on the consumer or client side and on the business side. Businesses want to make profits. The clients want to have some kind of satisfaction, but is it really the kind of satisfaction that that we need? And what is the impact on not only environment in terms of nature and resources, but also on the quality of our relationships? And in that regard, I act as an artist. That means I'm not scared to just disregard the rules of thinking or the given constraints and just go beyond whatever is given as frame now, and look at, for example, where does this problem come from? And one of the things is Peter Drucker, who is one of the fathers and gurus of the modern business world. One of his statements, which is still taught in management schools, is that the purpose of a business is to create a customer, which actually is not correct. The purpose of a business is to improve quality of life with products and services that they provide. And as long
I
as
tell you what, No, I was just going to say, I really hope that I've got the sort of longevity that Peter Drucker has with my writing that he's had. I don't think I can reach that status, but he passed away in 2005, of course, and we're still talking about Drucker and his influence on management consultancy in particular. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, but what I represent is this win-win principle was kind of revolutionary, but that partially brought to the situation we are in. And I speak about triple win strategy, or I try to, when I consult companies and organizations, to bring in that aspect, which is on one hand, taking into consideration by the client or the end user. So the products and services should improve the quality of life of the users. It should be profitable for the business, but by doing so, it should proactively do good also for the greater environment, for the greater good. And this is possible. It is only a matter of perspective and focus. What do we really want to achieve? Because if we look short term, everybody was excited about the advancements that, for example, the technology like smartphones brought into the world, and it's a huge accelerator of development on one hand. On the other hand, it brought in many other kind of problems like mental health problems among all the generations. Yeah. And I look always at the problems from different aspects and try to see what do we need to change in order to satisfy the real need behind that behavior, let's say so. Or the so-called bad guys, what do they want? Can we satisfy their real need? Like, if the need is to earn money, is this really the only way to earn money? Can we, for example, we can earn maybe the same amount of money or make the same profit by selling less, but with a higher value.
So I mean, in terms of sort of creating this philosophical shift, and I know you talk a lot about sustainability and regeneration of the planet. So let's go there. Let's talk about that. We have climate impact, we have artificial intelligence. These two things could be aligned in terms of outcome. For example, we could use artificial intelligence for more efficient resource allocation and so forth. But at the same time, it could be just used for pure capitalism. So how do you have those conversations with executives and board members and things like that to get them on side? And what's their response generally?
I mean, I usually ask also the questions that many people do not ask in boardrooms, and that is about the human factor. It's not only the numbers, but I think maybe the most important part in all the problems that we have is the human factor and the human nature. And if we speak, for example, about ethics in AI, we cannot not address ethics among humans because AI is a child of us humans. It will do what we train it to. We cannot expect of AI to be ethical if the people who it learns from do not think about their own ethics. And in that regard, I also go back to first principles or universal principles, universal values. Maybe to say one more thing also among the brand and business strategy scene, purpose and values and mission and vision, these have become buzzwords. Everybody speaks about that. And I also challenge that. And I say, okay, purpose and values is not enough because mafia has also their purpose and their set of values. So it requires a higher purpose, that means which is life supportive, and it requires alignment with universal values.
Pardon? I mean, do you think that is the movement that, we should be trying to create globally?
Not as an only path. I believe in simultaneous addressing of in systems approach to life. I don't think that it is enough to only address one thing, and definitely not on the level of preaching. I think I call myself also a transformative experience designer, which means creating certain environments where transformative experience is possible, which can be on the, let's say, sustainability or regeneration side, but also on the individual side. I think we need to address the complex problems in a complex way, and also to look for new solutions in new ways, not only to look for new solutions. If we look for new solutions in the old ways, we will end up in the same way. So I'm about...
Yeah, that's a Einstein quote, isn't it? What he says about fixing
Yeah, he
problems.
says
We
something
can't fix
similar.
the same
Yes,
problems we
exactly.
created with the thinking that we used to create them. Yeah.
But I see my mission more to encourage people, especially experts in their own fields, to embark on to get courage to question their own positions, or to be brave to look from different sides and to see, is there a better way of doing things? And I'm very much proponent of collaborations, of interdisciplinary collaborations, because interdisciplinary problems can be addressed and solved only in interdisciplinary ways. So also futurists, when we speak about futurists, it's important that we come together looking at different aspects that affect the future or futures.
But find some cohesive approach,
Yes, of course.
All right, Dina, before we take a break, we like to do this little lightning round and get to know you a bit better in terms of your inspiration for the future. So this is the lightning round. So, Dina, what was the first science fiction or futurism that you remembered being exposed to in media, TV, books, film?
So definitely Star Trek, Doctor Who, Blade Runner, that kind of, I'm from that era.
Cool. Yeah. And we get a lot of Star Trek, actually, so...
Yeah, actually, it is really... But I remember very well Doctor Who and the video phone, that was kind of a totally science fiction, and today every child has it in their pocket, so...
Yeah.
Actually, that was for me inspiration to see how fast the world changes and how fast science fiction becomes reality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I remember 2001, the movie, they had a video phone as well. And we're doing it now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. On that, what technology do you think has most changed humanity or shaped humanity?
Besides the wheel, I think probably, in our time, probably computers.
Yeah, silicon. Yeah. And this is a bit more on the inspiration side. Can you name a futurist or an entrepreneur that has influenced you, and why?
Leonardo da Vinci.
Ah, incredible polymath. I've just read his biography by Walter Adamson's biography of him. Fascinating. I learned so much about Leonardo. Just certainly the proto-futurist. Totally. And polymath for sure. What an interesting man. Yeah. Yes. And the fact that we're still talking about him today, come on, that's incredible. All right, well, listen, let's take a quick break. You're listening to The Futurist. We're going to have a quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with talking about how Dina sees the future unfolding. Provoke Media is proud to sponsor, produce, and support the Futurist podcast. Provoke.fm is a global podcast network and content creation company with the world's leading fintech podcast and radio show, Breaking Banks. And of course, its spin-off podcast, Breaking Banks Europe, Breaking Banks Asia Pacific. But we also produce the official Finovate podcast, Tech on Reg, and Emerge Everywhere, the podcast of the Financial Health Network. For information about all our podcasts, go to provoke.fm or check out Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. Welcome back to The Futurist, the world's #1 futurist podcast. And we have a great guest for us today. We've been talking to the first first half about how art informs the development of the future and melds sort of storytelling and philosophy and technology and things like that into the mix. An interesting approach for futurism, and that's Dina Baenninger. Dina, we like to get a bit more, sort of future focused in the second half of the show. So let's start by talking about in your toolkit when you're meeting with, various organizations. In terms of your key messages about the challenges and opportunities for the future, what sort of themes do you find yourself coming back to, consistently?
One maybe major topic is being adaptable, being building the organization or the business in a way that it can react to whatever changes are there in the world, and can seize opportunities or even create opportunities by having a foresight.
Cool. I think that's sort of underestimated. That ability to adapt is particularly, I think, very important right now with what we see happening with artificial intelligence. And someone tries ChatGPT once, and then sort of, you get these people and they say, "Oh, ChatGPT is not going to take my job." And it's like, end of discussion. I tried it once. It's not going to take my job, so I'm not really worried about it. It's like, do you not understand what's happening? Can you not see, just think about voice recognition, 10 years ago and where it is today, how well machines can do that. And, obviously we study the space. So but being adaptive to being able to use AI every day is sort of becoming a fairly differentiating skill. Are you using AI, ChatGPT every day yourself? I know I am in my planning and stuff like that strategically for business now.
Yes, I do. And I actually love it. I cannot consider myself the master of it, but I like playing with it and challenging my own pathways, thoughts. And I think it's really an amazing tool to accelerate the thinking or processing of information. It's all about how we use it. And I think that people largely either do not understand its potential or misunderstand or are just too slow to get it. But I find it fascinating.
Apart from adaptability, when you talk about the big themes for the future, I know regenerative and sustainable, themes are a strong element of what you discussed. But in terms of the tech, do you get into specifics on technologies that like AI, that you think are going to reshape industry, and how do you communicate those changes or the need to be adaptable?
I can give you one example that working on a project right now within the Aloha's Regenerative Foundation, which you mentioned with Mark Buckley, and that is in the context of large-scale regenerative development projects, which is for destinations, urban environments, and so on. We collaborate with a company called Dynex Moonshots, and they have developed neuromorphic quantum computing technology, which is by 100-fold more powerful than Willow that is released right now recently. It's not to be compared apples to apples, but we look very much into use of high-end technology in order to accelerate the improvement of whatever condition out there in the world. And with this technology, what we look into is to almost real-time simulate different kind of scenarios and processing of a large amount of data, which can help companies not only to prove their concepts and mitigate risks, but also to understand better for people who cannot imagine different scenarios, to have them laid out. And I have a great hope in using technology for good, AI for good, and all.
Are there some specific technologies that you're bullish on?
I think I'm really keen into what will happen with quantum computing. That's something that I think can help us accelerate and empower humans in on the side of technology to unfold our capacities and potentials, but also everything what's to employ technology to improve every part of human life, from banking where you're at home through everything else where technology can help, but also to have awareness and to see where we do not need technology and where it is important to take out technology and to stay on the human level. That differentiation, I think it's very important. And I bring in that conversation too. And often it is not well, not gladly heard at first sight,
Right.
but I think it's important to have that, to see, do we really need more, or what we don't need.
I mean, you talk about the need for ethics, but and you talk of just then, you illustrated the responsiveness can sometimes be a bit frosty to some of these more humanistic or community-based and mission-based sort of approaches to people, because it doesn't sort of fit into the pure capitalism model. Sure, if your company can do things that are good on the side after you've made the profits, then that's great. But the purpose of the corporation is making profit. But that, I think, has to change. I think we're not going to be able to. We're not going to accept organizations in our future that aren't fully sustainable, that aren't looking at more community-based impact, social good, and so forth. I think after the lessons of what we've seen with the fossil fuel companies and the health profitability companies, in the healthcare system and things like this, that we're not going to have the patience for organizations that are profit-focused over people, right? Or profit-focused over mission. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yes, but I also think there is a huge misunderstanding in the conversations around sustainability, and I prefer to speak about regeneration, and that is
Sure, please.
Sustainability and regeneration are actually nowadays can be and are synonymous with profitability. And this was the big misunderstanding, let's say 10 or 20 years ago, where sustainable meant reductionism, meant having lesser quality of life, having no profit and so on, which is not at all the case anymore. And we collaborate also with Bertrand Piccard and Solar Impulse Alliance. Cool. He's a dear friend as well, and he has developed that 1,000 solutions. They're now almost by 2,000 solutions, which they select among different categories, and there are 3 criteria that those solutions need to satisfy in order to be to qualify, and that is they must be sustainable, they must be profitable, and they must be scalable. So
did you know that Bertrand Piccard comes from a long line of explorers?
Yes,
his grandfather was a balloonist and an undersea explorer, and of course Jacques Piccard was an undersea explorer as well. So pretty amazing family history, right?
Yes, actually, he's really a dear friend, and his grandfather was the first person to see the Earth out of orbit, and he's the inventor of the pressurized capsule. And his father is the first person to get on the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, you mean the curvature of the Earth?
Yes,
in a balloon.
In a pressurized capsule. Yeah. So.
Wow.
And really what Bertrand does, and also based with his the legacy of his family, he's credible to speak about pioneering and to encourage people to think beyond, to question their assumptions, and to find new ways. He never speaks of himself as a futurist, but if you ask me for a futurist of nowadays, I would mention him definitely as one of the top.
Well, that's great. That's a really interesting Yeah, really interesting character. So listen, Dina, as we wrap up here, we like to get a bit sci-fi and
Okay.
futuristic. So let's now go out to the year 2040 or 2050, 20 to 30 years ahead. In fact, because it's a new year, we are now closer to the year 2050 than we are to the year 2000. So let's put ourselves in 2050 and tell me what you think the world is going to be like then, based on your philosophy of the future.
I don't know if it will be, but it will be kind of a vision of mine to be. And there I will challenge directly one of the topics that you're very much familiar with, and that I would say money should come out of the equation. We should reconsider how we value things and how we get paid for things and how we work in order to get paid. I would love that we have teleportation and to just forget about
That'd be cool.
all that transportation issues. Just forget about that. To develop not only technologies but also practices that empower human potential in the communication that includes not only intuition but also telepathy. That can be also partially encouraged with technology, but also to have technology that involves and empowers human health and the latent capacities to the highest. So that would be kind of
You talk about telepathy, and that would have sounded like science fiction just a few years ago. But with Neuralink and brain-to-brain communication and things like that we've seen develop, in 30 years, who knows? We could theoretically have some people that choose to be in some sort of hive mind or have some at least shared experiences in some way using brain control interfaces and things like that. It's fascinating to think about how that could change communication.
But not only that will change. If just imagine we have that kind of communication, then there will be a lot of things that will disappear, which are now causing problems, including pollution. So I think the development can go in using technology to empower our own capacities, so that we use less technology as crutches, but more as impactful developer of our own capacity.
So, how, with AI disruption to employment and things like that, you talked about being more aligned with human differentiation, the artistry, the creative side and things like that, the experiential side. We hopefully we won't have to work in 30 years' time because of automation. So what will the day-to-day activity of humans be like? What do you see that space being like with those optionalities?
Having wonderful conversations with each other, having time with each other where we do not speak but understand and enter other dimensions of our own existence, and discover the world as actually people have discovered it ever since we have probably emerged on this earth, and as artists and scientists discover it nowadays as well. And that is go out there, observe, perceive, transform, and transcend.
Very cool. Well, Dina, it's been wonderful to have you on the show. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and it's a very different approach for us as an organization to have something a little bit more aligned with this. But if you're, if people are sort of looking to be more artistic in their view of the future and apply more of that creative thinking, what could you recommend to them in terms of thinking or reading or getting in the mindset?
Definitely go to any kind of classical art class, because there you learn to observe from as many perspectives as possible simultaneously without judgment, then to perceive what is. Then you're encouraged to transform for example, blank canvas into something and then to transcend it. And that's a skill that can be, I wasn't aware that this can be learned, but yes, it can be learned. And to correct you, actually, it's art. I will go back to art as a process, not art as a result. I really would love that this is introduced more in organizations, in schools, so that we learn how to perceive the world. First principles thinking, art thinking, design thinking, to double down on our capacity to learn from observation, from perception.
Awesome. Well, the ability to change your perception and perceive the world differently as others do is sort of a superpower, or sort of a hack, actually. So, who knows? I mean, if we're pursuing more real things to do, more philosophical, educational, scientific things, then there's opportunities to explore that as well. So, Dina, how do people sort of follow your career and what you're doing and the work you're doing, with Alohas and so forth?
LinkedIn is my favorite platform for communication, but also to see what I'm doing. And the Alohas regenerative channels, as well as Charisma Nova. But LinkedIn is kind of my platform of preference.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us on The Futurist today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So thank you for joining us as well, for those of you that are listening out there. And thanks for keeping up with our discussion on the future. If you have a futurist that you would like us to interview, or some topics you'd like us to delve into more, we're definitely going to be spending more time on quantum this year, I think. And we are going to have a show on AGI soon, because there's already rumors about, ChatGPT 04 reaching, various milestones there and so forth. What is AGI? We got a lot of topics we really want to cover off this year. So let us know, if you've got some ideas for that conversation. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review if you're listening to the show right now, or tweet us out, or X us out, or Facebook us, post us, LinkedIn, TikTok us, whatever you can do to help people find out about the show, because that's the way we grow our audience and listenership. Thank you once again for being on The Futurist with us this week. And until next week, when we have our next show, we'll see you in the future.
Well, that's it for The Futurists this week. If you like the show, we sure hope you did. Please subscribe and share it with the people in your community. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. That really helps other people find the show. And you can ping us anytime on Instagram and Twitter at Futurist Podcast for the folks that you'd like to see on the show, or the questions that you'd like us to ask. Thanks for joining. And as always, we'll see you in the future.